Yo, how's it going, guys? I want to welcome you today to the Observe and Report podcast. Today, we're going to be joined by a very special guest, Chief Gary Hill from Lincoln University, located in Jefferson City, Missouri. Chief, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? I've been doing all right, brother. It's been a long summer. It's been a long getting ready to go into the fall. So it's good to see you. I hadn't heard from you, seen you in a long time. Last time I saw you, you were on Fox News.
Yeah. That's been an interesting ordeal, doing a little contributing for them. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of stuff to talk about here in Portland, and I think that's something that a lot of people across the country are dealing with. And unfortunately, it's a situation where the average is speaking up,
Well, like I said, you always have something positive to contribute, and you're always facts-based. So I'm all for that.
Good deal. Well, so just kind of give everybody a brief overview of what you have going on. You are the chief of police of Lincoln University, and you're the lead developer for the nation's first HBCU police academy. It says HBCY there. That's a wrong typo there, but the nation's first HBCU police academy. Just kind of give everybody a brief background on, what it is that you do and how you came to start such a monumental program there at Lincoln University. Gary, you're muted. Your microphone's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah. So when we started the academy, we didn't know we were going to be the first academy. We had absolutely no idea. We just assumed that there were other police academies at other HBCUs. You look around the country, and there are police academies at a lot of the colleges across the country. So we didn't naturally assume HBCUs would play an important part in the criminal justice program, and they do. But unfortunately, out of the 107 HBCUs, only 52 of them have criminal justice programs. And so that was more information that we found out. And so we went into this as a localized program. We wanted to, because we're in the middle of Missouri, and the African-American population in Missouri it kind of mirrors pretty much the nation. And so, but you look around at some of the law enforcement agencies, and there's no diversity, especially in the mid-Missouri area. And so we created this program in the sense that we were hoping that we'd be able to attract more minorities, women, and other people of color into law enforcement by putting a law enforcement academy in a Black space, which is at an HBCU. And so our philosophy was on that, where most people want to go where other people look like them. We see that in our churches, we see that in our clubs, hangouts, and things like that. And so far, having a police academy on the campus of an HBCU, we've been really successful. There are 20 police academies in the state of Missouri. Well, 21 now. And out of the 21 police academies, we are the only police academy that in our existence, almost 3 years now, able to have minority representation in every class. Yeah. And that's crazy. And so that's why we think we have something special here. We're currently in the process of trying to work with other HBCUs to establish what we're doing here. But again, as you know, the rules are different in every state.
Chief, you said 3 years, and so that takes us right back to 2020. What did COVID or the situation surrounding George Floyd, what did that have in terms of impact on you creating this program?
Great question. A lot of people, we were getting phone calls. I was specifically getting phone calls. The university was getting phone calls, emails. I even got a couple of text messages from people saying that it was very insensitive that I was trying to start a police academy right in the midst of the George Floyd situation. In my mind, what better time? And the reason why I say that is because, let's look at the statistics. And when we start looking at the statistics, of course, they can favor any way depending on how you slice it. But when we
Absolutely.
start looking at uses of force, and we start comparing the use of force of minority officers as compared to their white counterparts, the uses of forces are way down. Shootings are way down. And those numbers don't lie. That's the FBI, NIBRs, UCRs, all that stuff states that African Americans, people of color who are in law enforcement, use force less than their white counterparts. And so that was one of my talking points. We have to have representation. People, when they see representation, and even whether they're wearing the badge or uniform or not, they feel like they're being represented, and that, you know, if I talk to this person, he's going to understand where I come from. That's why representation is so important.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that the situation around George Floyd was very pivotal for me because, you know, I worked as a state constable in Pennsylvania. I'd worked in the prison system. I'd worked in the court system, and moving to Missouri and focusing on my, you know, gymnastics and fitness schools, I was done with law enforcement. I really had no desire to go back. But, you know, watching not the situation that happened with George Floyd, but the response from the police departments, where so many police officers were turning in the badge basically at the calls for accountability and transparency. And so, you know, I had applied for the police department at, you know, in Jefferson City. I ultimately, you know, came and worked for you in a security capacity when I was not quite sure what I was going to do. But that's kind of what got me back involved in some aspect of law enforcement, of wearing uniform, you know, carrying a firearm and having a badge, is that I wanted to be um, in a situation where I could be of positive influence, whether that was working in law enforcement or working in security. And that attitude of representation, it does matter. You know, having someone that looks at you and can relate to your situation, that understands where you're coming from, understands, you know, culturally or historically what you've gone through, that is so important. Has there been any pushback in the area that you're in? You know, you're in Middle Missouri. And again, you said the university itself is very representative to the statistical number of minorities or blacks throughout the country, you know, 13% or smaller. Have you had any pushback in the state of Missouri with what you're trying to do at Lincoln University?
We haven't had any pushback whatsoever. We've had nothing but support, even from our minority communities and other communities that are in economic distress zones. We all know this is something that has to happen. The only pushback that we have are literally is the times that we're trying to recruit minorities. We have to go about it a different way, in the sense of what we say to them. For normal recruiting practices don't usually work. And so we literally sit with people and talk with people and try to explain with them about law enforcement. Because there's a stigma around it. It's so dangerous and it's so this, and all these things can happen. But if you go look at the Department of Labor statistics, law enforcement doesn't even rank in the top 20 of the most dangerous jobs.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. And so what we're running and what we're fighting against is media bias. You take a kid that's thinking about law enforcement that says, you know, I've seen some things, I'm not sure that I want to get into it. I said, where do you see those things at? My social media feed. Well, that's the algorithm. If you're looking at police brutality issues and things that police do, your phone, and if you're talking about it with other people, your phone is going to put nothing, especially if you're doing it on TikTok and some of the other platforms. Every time you open your phone, is going to show, you know, a police brutality incident or some sort of negative stigma around law enforcement. So,
You
just
know,
trying
Chief,
to.
I have a question. You know, my daughter, she goes to Murray State. Very, very, very proud, you know, Black young lady. She's in a sorority. And, you know, for a lot of people in our culture, specifically if they go to an HBCU, this is a moment of self-discovery, right? And then right now, the conversation is so big. All of my kids, from my 25-year-old son down to my 16-year-old daughter, they're so politically aware, way more than I ever was at that age, probably more than I was in my 30s. How do you find a way to recruit people who are going to an HBCU when the conversation is so broadly about police brutality, interaction between police and the Black community, white supremacy, systemic issues. How do you get people who are in that environment and who are so ingrained in that conversation and feel passionately about that? How do you get them to accept the opportunity to be a police officer in that environment? That's like two contradictory, opposites, and you're having to try and mesh those together. How have you been able to do that?
So what we've been able to do is, again, have those conversations. I'm working on a program with Dr. Youssef. She's a criminal justice chair at a Bethune-Cookman in Florida. And we are talking with students about just that uncomfortable conversation about trying to recruit them into law enforcement. So we did a program in Kansas City here last weekend where we talked about that, and it's called I Fear for My Life. And what that means is we have people in our Black communities that are talking about when it comes to law enforcement, they fear for their lives. And then you have the law enforcement perspective that they're saying, I shot this person because I was in fear for my life. And so what we've done is we bring these two groups together and we have the conversations about why is it that we feel the way that we feel on both sides. And so when we have those open conversations, one of the things that we have to tell them, you may not want to be in law enforcement. You may not want to be a police officer. Somebody has to do it, because if you don't do it, the people that you don't want doing law enforcement, policing you, driving down your neighborhoods will be the ones that are doing it.
Yeah.
I said, so you have a choice. We can sit here and we can make all the legislative process that we can in order to get things passed and bills and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's the individual law enforcement officer that is going to make an impact on what goes on in those communities and in those children and those kids' lives at the HBCU. Because you got to remember, and I always bring back George Floyd and Chris Brown. One police officer does something stupid 700-800 miles away, and all of us pay for it.
Yeah,
we all sing the same way. And so it is imperative that we get the right people in the law enforcement. And if you feel like it needs to be changed, you have to be the change.
Do you think that this program is going to have an effect on diversity in general in law enforcement? I think that number 13% is probably very representative of, Black officers across the board in law enforcement as well. Do you think that this program and the national attention that it's garnered will help to kind of change that narrative around Blacks in law enforcement and help to push more people to try and get into that industry?
The answer is unequivocally yes. I always say the power of one. We look at, I had an idea. I had an idea to start a police academy and an HBCU. And now look, one person can always be that catalyst to change. So I do think that is, and the reason I can say that is a fact is because once, within, here we are, we're on class number 8 and 9 right now. And I have people all across the nation at other HBCUs and other towns and city councils reaching out to me wanting to do the same, just so that they can have a minority pool. People want to feel comfortable when they go to the police academy. I was one of 26 people in the police academy, and 2 of us were Black. No one hung out with us. No one talked to us. We didn't go out and eat lunch and stuff together. We were pretty much kind of on our own. Think about if that's going on all across the nation. I've had people come from Texas, Illinois, Iowa, everywhere just to go to our police academy because they felt like it was going to be inclusive. And so until we can start that conversation of what's actually going on, one, in our academies and what's going on in our law enforcement agencies, to where recruitment is hard, but retention is even harder right now because of what's going on with the inside of our agencies, then, we still got a lot of work to do. But I always believe the one, just like you and your podcast right now, you're talking to one person and someone may be listening and say, you know what? I'm going to be that change that guy that I was listening to on Damon's show was talking about. So I truly believe in that.
There's been a lot of attention that's been given to this program. For me, living in Missouri, everybody knows, the University of Missouri, Columbia, MU. And even living in Jefferson City, where we have uh, this university located, if you were to go to the local stores and you were looking for any, memorabilia, T-shirts, anything, it's all MU. It's MU, University of Missouri, Go Tigers. This program that you have established or helped to establish has brought a lot of national attention to Jefferson City, Missouri. How has it impacted the surrounding area of Jefferson City in terms of that visibility of Lincoln University? Has this helped to increase the visibility of Lincoln University in terms of the people of Jefferson City, or is it still somewhat the same? And the reason why I ask that is because, Missouri is so blue collar, very pro law enforcement, pro military. So the fact that you're doing something at a local university that's garnering so much national attention, so much national press, I would be hopeful that this would help to elevate the status of Lincoln University to the people that are there. What have you seen in terms of the response from the people there in Jeff City?
So I've seen the response from the people in Jefferson City, everything from complete support. We have people in Jefferson City that provide complete scholarships for people to attend the academy.
Wow.
They'll pay for it all. Business people that are groups together to say, hey, if someone doesn't have the funding to be able to go to school or go to the academy, me and my family will pay for it out of our trust.
Wow.
White people, Black people, the support received from Governor Parsons' office and the Department of Public Safety, because they all see the need, has been absolutely amazing. I've been around the country for the last couple of years speaking on what I do here at the academy and how other academies can get started and the benefits of it. There will always be the naysayers that says, we understand what you're trying to do, but it is not going to help any. Look what happened in Memphis. All those were Black guys, and all those were Black officers. It's not going to change anything. And, I always say, when that happened, every one of us that watched that video and really watched that video, we all knew that was something personal.
Yeah.
We all knew that. And going into the investigation, come out, what happened? It was some personal stuff. Yeah. And I said, I never said that having, African-American police officers was going to stop crime. What I said was representation matters. And what I said was we're truly going to talk about the conversation of recruitment. People have to see other people that look like them, not just at the ground level as boots on the ground, but rising through the ranks in the administration too. And that's one of the things we tell the students as well, and other officers of color that are in these agencies. You have to stay there, because you have to reach that point to where you can get to a rank to where that you can affect policies and procedures and culture of the agencies. Oftentimes we get into some of these agencies and we may be at an agency with 100 officers and be 3 of us Black guys. And we say, I'm only going to be here for a little bit. And we never even think about rising through the ranks, because we always think we're going to be held back in the roadblocks, and we don't want to fight the roadblocks, and we don't want to draw attention to ourselves, but we have to if we're going to make that change. We receive national attention on what we're doing, and locally the support is just, it's still pouring in.
That's great to hear. That really is. You have a security division within the university. And so my question is, how have the principles that you've implemented with the academy, how have they been applied to the security division of what you're doing there at Lincoln University? When I was first coming in and kind of seeing that, there was, in my opinion, if I can just tell you looking back, in my opinion, there was a little bit too much separation. And I didn't feel that there was enough integration with security and law enforcement on those both sides. But I wasn't there very long, so that's just my personal opinion from a very short amount of time that was there. With you creating this academy, has that opened up more opportunities for training within the security division that you have there at the university?
Yes and no. So you're exactly right. That separation was there. We just now got to the point here within this last year, Damon, to be quite honest with you, to where the security elements are now part of the patrol teams. So we just got there to that point to try to fix that gap. It's kind of a curse, because a lot of the security elements now that we hire, they're now working with the law enforcement officers side by side, and now they're only security officers for a month or two until they can get into the academy.
Right.
And so we have, two of them right now that are security officers, but they're going through the academy, and so that has been the downfall we have. So they have learned a lot from this. Our security elements have learned a lot from being with the law enforcement officers. The only thing they don't have is a firearm. Right. We went so far as to make sure that they're trained in TASER, CIT, which is crisis intervention training, MACE, defensive tactics, and all those things. Again, they're wearing vests, carrying handcuffs now, and all the things. The only thing that they're not doing is carrying firearms, and we have seen a real uptick as far as the motivation to come to work and to be a part of the team. It's a lot better than what it was when you were here.
Absolutely. What leadership lessons have you learned on this journey? From your time in the sheriff's department, your time when you actually ran for sheriff of Jeff City. That's a whole another podcast that we can do on that. But what have you learned in creating this program, all of the national attention, starting something at this university? What have you learned in terms of leadership that you can share?
Man, patience. There are sometimes where, as a leader, you get a vision in your mind and you're trying to push your staff and the people who work for you as fast as that vision is going in your mind. And sometimes they don't have the capacity to be able to do it. Sometimes they don't have the training to be able to do it. You're thinking that we can be here with just a couple of tweaks and a couple of things here and there, but then you have to realize, are the people that you're trying to take on this journey with you, do they have the capacity and the training to do what you need in order to reach our goal as a law enforcement agency? I would say that, and patience has been the biggest learning curve for me, because you know me, I like to move. I like to, let's get it done.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Making sure that as a leader, when you have a mission, that everyone in your boat is rowing, and you don't have anybody drilling holes while everybody else is rowing, because those are substantial setbacks. Ask for help, whether it's from within your agency or outside your agency. My biggest thing that has made me very successful is I continue to learn. I continue to be a sponge from people, no matter what level that they're at, because I can always learn something from somebody else. So I will never consider my learning journey to be complete. And I think that that's what makes me a pretty solid leader.
Chief, when you look back on this, what's going to be the marker for success?
When I look back and I see that I've changed the face of several law enforcement agencies by opening the door for can get into law enforcement, and they can make a change, because even if the change is small, and what I mean by that is because you decide to go to the academy as a Black man, and you decide to work at an office to where you may be the only face of color in that agency. Now someone else saw you, and they decided that if he can do it, I can do it. And so I'm hoping that when people look at me and they see the things that I've done, that I've set the example and showed them that it is possible. Because remember, everything's impossible until somebody does it.
Right.
So I'm hoping that that will be the marker.
I like that. For anybody that's working in leadership, management, low-level management, or maybe starting a company, running a company, or just the person that's working a post in security, what advice do you have for them in terms of being a leader? You've had many different roles, many different opportunities to lead a lot of different people in a lot of different aspects of law enforcement. What's the biggest piece of advice that you can give to people who are either embarking on that first step of leadership or already in a role of leadership, and they just need some way to figure out how to better connect with all of these different people from different backgrounds? And like you said, people that maybe can't see the vision, people that maybe can't understand why you're articulating something a certain way, what it is you're trying to accomplish. What's that one piece of advice for leaders in order to help be more successful in their organization?
Discipline and consistency. Discipline and consistency will get you so far as a leader, because when they see that discipline and you're disciplined, you're able to control your emotions, you're able to control, because you can't control what other people do. All you can control is how you react to it. So when you are consistent and disciplined, that's when you stand out. That is, every leader that I've ever attached myself to has been disciplined and consistent with the way that they treat people, with their work ethic, which is huge. As a leader, you have to have work ethic. You have to be the pillar of your agency. Okay, they have to look at you and say, man, that guy's work ethic is impeccable. He's professional all the time. The way he carries himself in and outside of the job, that's someone that I can follow. So discipline, consistency, and be a pillar of your agency, to where if they don't know something or how to act or how to respond to something, they have seen it the way you've done it, and they'll know that that's the right way.
Lead from the front.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Chief, before I get you off, what's the plan moving forward for the academy? I know you said you're working with multiple schools, you're working with different communities, you're talking to city councils. What do you have in store for the next 2 to 5 years of what you're doing?
So we have already grown. We have already established an academy at Harris Stowe, which is our sister HBCU in St. Louis. So I have a site there on their campus. It's still Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy. It is just on the campus of Harris Stowe, again, which is, so the 2 HBCUs that we have in Missouri, we have a law enforcement training academy there. So moving forward, establishing HBCU police academies at all the HBCUs that have criminal justice programs. That is the goal. I will, when I accomplish that, then I'll step aside.
I mean, that's cut and dry. You got right to the point. I love it. All right, Chief Gary Hill, I want to thank you for being here and coming onto the podcast and sharing all this great information. You're doing a great thing. I respect you. I'm very proud of you, and I hope you have continued success. You're doing great things. This is so needed.
Hey, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on your show. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.